everyone, and the viewing audience also. First note is Councillor Snively is absent this evening as he's been sick all this past week in bed. So get well, Larry. And looking for the adoption. Did I open the meeting? At this time, I'll open the meeting and ask if there's any declarations of conflict of interest. That's it. No, thank you very much. Mr. Auger?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to go back to item 2, closed meeting report. I can quickly report that council met in closed session earlier this evening at 4:30. And this closed meeting took place pursuant to Section 239(2)C and Section 239(2)E of the Municipal Act. In that closed session, council received an update on a pending litigation matter, and council was also provided with an update from administration on a proposed acquisition of land by the municipality. And that's my closed meeting report at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, sir. Looking for additions to this published agenda for this evening? Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just one item, and I suppose we could add that to as 7.2 under unfinished business. Councillor Vokes sat on the Court of Revision this evening in place of Councillor Snively, and so we would just be looking for a confirming resolution from council confirming his appointment as that replacement member of Court of Revision.
Would you like to do that then or right now?
I would suggest proceeding with the adoption of the agenda as amended, and then we can deal with that.
Thank you. Any other additions? Councillor Vokes?
Thank you, Councillor Bjorkman. I'm still trying to understand our notice of motion protocol. Is it at this place in time we submit any notices of motion, or do we do it under council activities, or right now?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and to Councillor Vokes, you could give notice at this time that you wish to speak to a motion, and then when we arrive at the appropriate place on the agenda, you can state your motion. It's just for presentment, of course, this evening, and that it would be brought back for consideration at the next meeting.
So I raise it now, and then we talk about it later. I notice motion time. Oh, no wonder I get confused. Okay, so I will be putting forward 3 notices of motion for the next council meeting. And the first one is I want to discuss with council about opportunities to look at downtown cafes in our downtown corridor in our urban center of Essex, outside cafes. And then my next notice of motion will be, I want to talk about, we go through with our street sweeper on a Friday, and then on Friday afternoons and Saturdays and Sundays, when people cut their grass, they blow their grass clippings onto the road that we just swept on Friday. And it's actually a little bit of an epidemic, so I want to talk to council about implementing a bylaw or reassuring with people about how we're watching that, if you will. And then the next thing I'll be asking for a motion is I'm be asking for the complete cost of the fireman's report and summary that was put forward to council at the next meeting. And that's it. Thank you.
Any other additions? No, we haven't. Now we're looking for a mover and seconder for the adoption of the published agenda. Deputy Mayor Malash and Councillor Vokes, any questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
5.1, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held April 16th be adopted as circulated.
Councillor Rogers, supported by Councillor Bjorkman. Quick, Councillor Rogers.
Yes, there's one correction, very minor, but there is a correction. On page 14 of the agenda, of the minutes, I should say, right at the very top, Ward 3 was at Colchester Harbor Park, and Ward 4 was at Harrow and Colchester South Community Center. Did you see that? Top of page 14.
Page 14? Oh, okay.
Minor, but hey.
Yep, we'll note that.
Thank you for that, sir. Anything else? All in favor? Motion carries.
5.2, that the minutes of the special council meeting held May 1st, 2017 be adopted as circulated.
Moved by Councilor Bjorkman, supported by Deputy Mayor Malash. Questions? All in favor? Oh, Councilor Rogers, please. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. There is, in these minutes, there was a note, or an action required that, one of the questions I did want to ask on this, though, is why are we getting minutes like a year after the meeting has taken place?
Mrs. Hunter, our CEO, has an answer.
Through you, Your Worship. I think there's a variety of issues, if I may. We have had many staff shortages for well over a year with the departure of their former CAO. We've had my old position vacant, and then when that position moved up into my former position, that finance position became vacant. There's been vacancies in human resources. There's been an extreme amount of workload. Rob is now got a deputy clerk, which was much needed to trying to help get these things caught up. We were having meetings pretty much every week, sometimes 2 and 3 times a week. It's gotten behind. We're working like crazy to get it caught up now that we have a deputy clerk in place, and that's all I can say.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Anything further? All in favor? Oh, Councilor Vogt, sorry.
Thank you. When the time is right, and at another time to council, in camera, I want to talk about the strains on staffing and alternative measures to reprise some of that, because I do believe it's there, but it's something that needs to be talked to, for my reasons, in camera. So if I could be slated at the next in-camera meeting we have, whenever we do that, I would very like 10 minutes council's time to share an opportunity for a reprieve on that meeting.
Anything further? All in favor? Motion carries.
5.3, that the minutes of the special council meeting held May 15th, 2017 be adopted as circulated.
Moved by Councilor Bondi, supported by Deputy Mayor Malash. Questions, Councilor Rogers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make sure that we did take care of this motion that is in here at a subsequent time, that we reversed this motion, or that, because this is saying that the size of the council will not change from the 7 people, this motion in here.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that was reconsidered at a subsequent meeting?
So that did...
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yes,
so
sir.
I want to make sure.
Thank you, sir. All in favor? Motion carried.
And 5.4, that the minutes of the special council meeting held July 24th, 2017 be adopted as circulated.
Moved by Councilor Bondi, supported by Councilor Vogt. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
Item 6 on the agenda, under 6.1, our first presentation is to Shelley Brown of our municipality, here to recognize her for her academic achievement as the winner of the AMCTO's Award for Excellence in Municipal Law.
Glad to see you're present, Shelley. This is from AMCTO, the municipal experts. Shelley Brown, winner of AMCTO's Award for Excellence in Municipal Law. Says, on behalf of AMCTO, I am extremely pleased to announce that Shelley Brown has achieved the highest cumulative grade for this past year upon completing the municipal law program, and as a result is this year's recipient of AMCTO's Award for Excellence in Municipal Law. Shelley will be presented with this award on June 11th at the 2018 AMCTO conference being held at the Blue Mountain Resort in the Blue Mountains, Ontario. We believe that this is a tremendous accomplishment and should be observed with pride by our community. Congratulations, Shelley. I think her boss, Mr. Morrison, has a few comments also.
Through the chair. I'd just like to take this opportunity to congratulate Shelley. Shelley's been instrumental in the development of the TCA policy, inventorying of the TCA's asset management plan, the evolution of our budget document, our operating forecast, our capital forecast, and over the past 6 years, Shelley has pretty much been my right hand, and I appreciate all the work and her desire to grow and achieve, and I look forward to watching you flourish. So, congratulations.
And I just thought of something. Back when Mr. Miller was our CAO, Shelley worked, I don't know, doing what, out in Kesto. And at that time, Mr. Miller told me she was coming into the Essex office, and one day, he wouldn't doubt she would be our CAO. That's what Mr. Miller thought about Rita. Thanks, Rita. We're going to get some pictures. Shelley. I'm looking at her name tag, Rita. Wow. Shelley, sorry. The votes.
Thank you. Look, at Council, I got to say this because I've worked with Shelley a long time now, and I've worked with different CAOs, I've worked with different councillors, and I've worked with a lot of people in my tenure on council. And I joke and kid with Shelley all the time about she's creating a safety hazard at work because Shelley has received so many significant awards. I'm not saying awards because the reality is periodically you can get an award or you can get a certification that you can go online and get it. If you look at the resume of Shelley's awards and certifications, they're all earned. They're not something you just fleet through, click the button, and you got it. Every one has been earned. And so with that being said, Shelley is obviously an outstanding employee. Her resume says that clearly. So I call on my council and I call on administration that any opportunities in moving forward, we should be looking at giving Shelley that opportunity. And traditionally, I don't lobby like this. I don't say it aloud, no, and it's something that is maybe questionable you should do, but I'm going to do it because I'm afraid of losing Shelley. Because there's not a municipality anywhere wouldn't want to have her. Her credentials would get her a job tomorrow, and we need to acknowledge that. So I call on my council and I call on my administration to recognize that moving forward, and Shelley, my hat is so off to you in your endeavors. Congratulations. Thank you, council.
I hate to rain on this parade, but I don't want people to think we're holding anyone back. We all have the opportunity to move forward as Shelley has, and I think every one of you will say, yes, I've been in that same situation, and it happened. Thanks. Here we go, Shelley, for some pictures with your boss.
Mr. Chair. Our second delegation is Ryan Cassier, reintroduction of a new business in Ward Wood, Woodcraft Pizza at 47 Talbot. I'm not sure if Mr. Cassier is here.
Oh, you got the baby. Yes, company. If you just want to get over to the table there, sir, if you should push the purple button, it should turn the red light on. You get double the time, seeing as how there's two of you.
You may do some speaking for me, so I apologize in advance. Thank you, Council, for having us. My name is Ryan Cazier. I am with Woodcraft Pizza on 47 Talbot Street North. Unfortunately, my partner Joe couldn't be here, but we brought our accounts payable director here, so if we're delinquent in any payments, just come see him. We are a small, cozy, I'd say just informally, a nice little pizza place. We serve craft pizzas and select appetizers, calamari, arancini, and sliders, some of the favorites. We do also have a nice variety of beers, local wines, and large screen TVs. We have live entertainment on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we're just really interested in looking forward to help building the town grow. So, sorry about that. Mom's working tonight. So. Never really done this before, so I don't know what else to really add to that, but if there are any questions at all.
Any questions, council members? Council vote?
Thank you, Chair. I had the opportunity to visit your facility, and if you haven't been there, you got to go there. And the reason is because when you walk in there, you don't even feel like you're in Essex. It's a different environment to it. It's like it's kind of crossing the line, almost state-of-the-art type thing that we're traditionally not used to. But I can tell you the place is absolutely stunning. It's so nicely done. It's well done. It's a beautiful place. And I actually, in terms of my motion that I had put forward tonight, is I had talked to them about maybe the wants and wishes of an outside cafe. But your place is outstanding. It's a beautiful place.
Thank you.
And you should be proud of it. I know it's a great opportunity for some entertainment value in Essex. So beautiful place. Thank you.
Thank you. That's much appreciated.
Councilor Bjorkman?
Thank you, through your worship. Ryan, hello. It's me with the suit on. We really enjoy the restaurant. It's nice for us. It's right across the street, so I can just walk there and walk home. The food's been first rate. We're really happy to have you right downtown as another option. We've got great food choices downtown. This is just one more, gives people another reason to come downtown and spend their time and their money. So we're thrilled to have you, and if you're thinking about getting a patio, we're right on board for that too, because I don't have a front porch. So anyways, it's great to have you down there. Thank you very much for coming out and seeing us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, everyone. Thank you.
Anything further? Okay, motion to receive the presentation by Councilor Bondi, supported by Councilor Bjorkman. Questions? All in favor? Motion carries. Good luck, sir. If you just hit that purple button, it'll go off.
Item 7.1, under unfinished business, is Communications Report 2018-02. At the April 16th council meeting, council received this report. It was brought back as unfinished business because Mr. Chair, because back on February 20th, council passed a resolution which stated that that after 2 months, if no suitable names were submitted to the town for the name of Colchester Park, that the town named the park Elijah McCoy Park. And so, as a result of council just receiving that report, Mr. Chair, council may want to consider a couple of directions here or things to consider. If council is of the opinion that there was a suitable name contained in that report, then I believe in order to close off the business, I believe council should indicate as such. Secondly, if there's if council's of the opinion that there were no suitable names submitted, and it's still the intention of council or the wish of council to stand by the original motion from February 20th, then I believe council needs to indicate it as such tonight. And then lastly, if it's council's, if it's council's opinion that there were no suitable names submitted, but that and that it's council's decision to not name the park Elijah McCoy Park and perhaps to keep it at the same name, then I think procedurally the original motion from February 20th would need to be brought back and reconsidered, and then the appropriate motion passed stating that the name of the park is to remain as Colchester Park. So we brought this back as unfinished business because it's simply receiving it in foresight, or it's a go back in time. Simply receiving it wasn't quite enough that evening.
Okay, comments? Councillor Vokes?
Yeah, thank you. I don't think this really needs to be complicated. I think council obviously agreed that in terms of public feedback, there was no need or no suggestion of having to or wanting to change the name of the park, that council and everybody agreed on without conflict. It was something that brought forward, we agreed. And all I suggested is that for the people who are out there that are in question as to whether or not we have changed the name or not, we just want to clarify that the name will remain the same after all considerations have been looked at. And I want to go on record and I want to say something. The truth is that Councillor Rogers, in bringing this forward, did what all of us would do in terms of representing his community. It was brought forward to him as an elected representative of that community to start the discussions about whether or not people or council or administration thought the name of the park should tentatively to have a different opportunity. And the agreement was it wasn't. And and my point is this, there's been some people out there who have made suggestion that Councillor Rogers was not being straightforward and honest in his deliverance to council, and the truth is, and I want to go on record and say it, that is not true. And that person who's out there suggesting in a political endeavor to maybe get an upper hand for whatever reason has made a suggestion that Councillor Rogers and councillors sitting at this bar, including me when he said it, really said you should stick to business of the municipality, and this really isn't important. And that particular person has never been wrong, because I sat with that person on council and I seen him share very familiar initiatives, and I'll leave it at that. So when a stone is being cast, you got to remember, good sir, not being wrong, but the person objected him, the person also at one time picked stones up and was ready to throw them. So I'll just leave it at that. So my hat's off to you, Ron. Good job. You represent your people well.
Anything further? Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to suggest, and what our clerk, Mr. Auger, has suggested, that the way this is sitting right now, the motion that was made at that meeting does not allow for status quo. So if this council's wish that the names stay the same, this motion has to be, as suggested, has to be rescinded and another motion made, because this motion does not allow for the status quo. It is it's that Elijah McCoy name or another name that was suggested. That's really all I've got to say about that. I do stand behind my suggestion of Elijah McCoy, though, as a big boost for economically and tourist-wise for our area. But we do need to move forward with this in one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you. I need clarification, because I gotta disagree with what you're saying, because I thought on the 20th, if we didn't get any other names recommended, which we did, I believe, 4 or 5, then it would stay. Am I wrong in assuming that?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the way the resolution from that February 20th meeting was stated, it was kind of stated as an either or, in that after 2 months of the public feedback, if no suitable names were submitted to the town for the name of Colchester, so if no submitted names, suitable names were submitted, then the town was to have named the park Elijah McCoy. So we have a decided matter. So if it's council's wish this evening to simply leave the name as Colchester Park, then this original motion needs to be reconsidered because it's already a decided matter of council. So it would be a matter of just bringing that motion to reconsider and then verifying no suitable names and that it's the wish of council to keep the name as currently stated.
But the motion, did not the motion say it would be McCoy Park if there were no suitable names recommended?
Through you, Mr. Chair, you're correct. The issue is that back at the April 16th council meeting, council did not definitively state whether any suitable names were submitted. They just received the report.
But did I not read in the minutes that there were 4 or 5?
There were a number of names submitted, including a number of residents who submitted that they wish the name to remain the same. The problem is that council simply did not decide one way or another at the April 16th meeting, so they never indicated if there were suitable names. They never indicated that there were not any suitable names. They simply received the report. So we just need clarification from council on that this evening.
Thank you very much. Councilor Bjorkman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there were other names brought forward, but we did not address the suitable issue. So at this time, I would like to move to rescind that motion.
So through the chair, it'd be a motion to reconsider, mover and seconder by 2 people who moved with the original motion,
And we did.
and then 2/3.
Actually, it just
Okay.
needs to be people who voted in favor of the motion.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, on the original motion, it was moved by Councillor Vokes, seconded by Councillor Rogers. Councillor Rogers, seconded. So this is Resolution R1802-075, and I have a copy of the minutes from the February 20th meeting, and the record shows moved by Councillor Vokes, seconded by Councillor Rogers. And there was no recorded vote.
Point of order?
Yep.
I believe that anybody who voted in favor of the motion can move to rescind the motion. It doesn't have to be the mover and seconder, so I am moving to rescind the motion.
We need a second.
Okay, Councilor Bondi, seconded it. Because I think we all voted for it.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, discussion, sorry. Deputy Mayor Malash?
Yes, just a question. I was not at that meeting, and so I can't vote to reconsider, but do I vote Mr. O'Shea this evening as to...
Through the chair, yes, you can vote on the subsequent motion, just not, as you stated correctly, just not on the original, on the motion to reconsider.
Further discussion to the motion just made? No? Okay, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion carries. Councilor Bjorkman.
Mr. Mayor, further to that, I don't believe there's anything needed to do now. It's Colchester Park, it's still Colchester Park, but I believe it was a very good exercise for us to take under. There was a lot of good feedback. There were a lot of people in favor of Elijah McCoy, and then also in favor of a couple other names, Hackett's Park, Jackson Colchester Park, Lankin. there's a wealth of historical currency, if I can say it that, for us out in that park. And it is Colchester Park, but we need to have a heritage element to that park. And I'm not going to volunteer to start another committee, but we do need to, at some point, look at creating an area at least. We've already started. There's a plaque that's at the entry of the park, but we could do a heritage garden. We could do a heritage sculpture garden where we can pay homage to some of our history at that area. And I think we should, at some point, not too far in the future, address that.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify further, so council just passed a motion to reconsider, so the matter is still brought up, and it's for consideration at this meeting now. So we would need direction from council on that.
Okay. Councilor Rogers had his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, but actually, since we do need reconsideration on this still, I should probably leave my comment till the end.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Councilor Vokes.
Thank you, Chair. So you look for a motion? Then I'll put a motion forward that the name of Colchester Park remain Colchester Park. Looking for a second.
Supported by the Deputy Mayor. Comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Councilor Rogers.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to say thank you to all the people that supported the potential name change, and I believe that although it did not pass, it has brought to light a lot of conversation. It brought up a lot of, as Councillor Bjorkman indicated, it brought up a lot of conversation, a lot of talk, and a lot more focus on the black history in our area, and maybe someday we will see a Underground Railroad theme that throughout the towns in our area that will help bring some tourism to our town as well as others to visit our, as was looked at a couple of weeks ago, visit our black cemeteries, the history that is rich in our area with the Underground Railroad, and the people that were helped by it and have grown to make our town and our country great. Thank you.
Thank you for your effort, sir.
Through you, Mr. Chair, 7.2 as added this evening. Councillor Vokes sat on the quarter revision for the Shepley Bridge, Shepley Drain Bridge for Chisholm, and he sat in place of Councillor Snively, who was unable to attend. Councillor Snively had been appointed, and so I was, through you, Mr. Chair, just looking for a confirming resolution, confirming the appointment of Councillor Vokes, who sat earlier this evening.
By Councilor Rogers, supported by Councilor Bjorkman. Questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
Reports for administration, 8.1, Community Services 2018-015, shining a light on Compassion Community Awards for receipt, and that administration be directed to assist in promoting the awards and encourage the community to nominate residents.
By Councilor Bondi, supported by Councilor Bjorkman. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
8.2, Finance and Business Services 2018-01, credit card transaction processing changes for receipt, and that effective June 30th, Council approve administration to move forward with no longer accepting credit card payments for property taxes owing over the phone at Town Hall, and also effective June 30th, Council approve admin to move forward with capping in-person credit card transactions to a max of $1,000 per transaction, both at Town Hall and the Guesto office.
Comment first.
Thank you, Your Worship. If we could just direct it to our Director of Finance, just so people have an idea of why we're doing this and the dollars that we're talking about with regard to it. Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair. So Based on the schedule within the document, you can see that in 2016, September 2016 to August 2017, credit card transaction costs were $67,000. And compared to the previous page in 2010, the credit card costs were $26,981. So the increase that we've seen since 2010 has been about an 81% increase. In 2010, it was about 81% on debit transactions, which have a 0.02% cost to the town, and a 20% credit card transaction. So the costs have escalated. There's been a number of factors that have come into play. There is card not present. When we accept credit cards over the phone, we pay a premium of 2%, which is card not present fee. Basic credit cards are about a 1.6%, where a premium card with points is approximately 3%. And then if you enter the non-PCI compliance, which is the standard that governs the rules around accepting credit cards and retention of information, our total range of exposure for each credit card transaction is between 5.1% to 7.5%. Averaged out, it ends up being approximately 2.48%. when you take all things into consideration, acceptance of credit cards at the counter, over the phone. So that's the rationale behind the report and the recommendation to remove accepting credit cards over the phone and the capping of $1,000 per transaction for property tax.
Further, Councillor? Nope. Okay, anything? Councillor Rogers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report needs a little clarification. There's a couple of issues in it with it as far as, where am I? On the very first page, number 3, it says the council approve administration to move forward in capping in-person credit card transactions to a maximum of $1,000 per transaction at the town hall and guest office. And down further, it indicates that that the town of Essex will no longer accept credit card payments over the phone and will implement a $1,000 cap per transaction per day. The one doesn't say it's $1,000 a cap per day, and the other one says per day, and then down at the bottom again, it indicates that a cap of $1,000 on in-person credit card transactions. So is it only $1,000 transaction per day? Or is it, it needs to be clarified? They don't match.
Through the chair, thank you for bringing that forward. In the development of the report and the feedback that we received from the feedback that we did receive, we went back and forth as to how to best deal with this. So the $1,000 was determined based on our average transaction volume and the average cost per, or average amount per transaction. So that's how we came to the $1,000. I know that wasn't part of the question, but so then it was discussed whether it should be a per day limitation, which it should be in my opinion, is that a per day would limit it to the intent of $1,000 per transaction. If you do $1,000 per transaction without the per day limitation, then you could just continue to do additional transactions at the counter, which I think is what you're getting at. So under item 3, I would like it to reflect that per day, please.
Yes, thank you. So you're going to make me come in 2 days in a row. Thank you.
Anything else? Deputy Mayor Malash.
Thank you, through your worship. And I do understand that credit card payments are increasing. There's a lot of credit card promotions for getting points, getting air miles, getting cash back for those who have credit cards if you use your credit cards. So I think this trend will only continue going forward. I think it's a responsible thing that the Town of Essex administration is recommending here. We spent a whopping $67,000 last year of taxpayers' monies funding credit card transactions. So that's to me, it'd be irresponsible not to do something here. I think we absolutely have to do something, and I'm almost to the point where I'd say that we almost have to get to the point where we don't accept credit card transactions. I'm sorry to say it, but that's what it looks like, and that's very unfortunate. I think we got to get back to the in the direction of whoever wants to use the credit cards, the credit card company should be relaying those charges back to the persons that are using the credit cards. But I think in this instance, it's a good step in the right direction. But I do believe that at some point in time, we're gonna see our finance team come to us and maybe suggest that we do not use credit card transactions. We're not the only ones in this situation. It looks like Kingsville is the only one that's offering third-party administrator and online only. So I think it's the right thing to do, in my opinion. Thank you.
Councilor Bjorkman.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to move receipt of the report and the recommendations.
Moved by Councilor Bjorkman, supported by Councilor Rogers. Councilor Bondi?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel like if we get a lot of public kickback, we could look at the Kingsville model and just see what kind of cost they're looking at. I don't know if I missed that, but I'm interested in seeing what Kingsville does, just as an alternative if publicly we have outrage. I am in support of this, and I agree, just like the deputy mayor, maybe we want to eliminate the $1,000 altogether, because if, you know, I pay my taxes online banking, or I used to pay them by check, and I pay them like cash, right? So and I don't want to subsidize credit card users for perks. I don't. At the same time, we want to be able to have a convenient way for people to pay their taxes. So that being said, if the cost to using a credit card is bore by the person using the credit card, then it doesn't matter to me. So I don't know if there's a comment on that or if I missed it.
Mr. Watt, or Morrison?
Through the chair. So one of the first scenarios we looked at was adding a surcharge, but due to the fact that we're a municipality and we're not retail sector, we couldn't add a surcharge at point of transaction. So the only option was to calculate it manually per transaction, and then you included the human error potential in there, and then you would have had to key in an additional entry. So we've identified the trend, and we're trying to find a solution, and this is kind of the first step to work towards finding something that fits. So, thanks.
The motion, anyone else? All in favor? Motion carries.
8.3, Corporate Services, 2018-04, Landfill Compensation Reserve Update and Forecast for receipt.
Moved by Councilor Vokes and supported by Councilor Rogers. Any questions? Councilor Vokes.
So the intent of obviously the asking of this was to try to discover how much money is in the landfill reserve. And it's reflecting that there's approximately $2.6 million in there, but some of it is townly spoken for. I'm right in saying that? But it still leaves a significant balance. So my original request for asking this was to find this amount, look at what's been spoken for, what opportunities are there, and apply it to use on the CIP program in terms of enhancing any new businesses that may be found, because we were wondering how we were going to financially support it, because it wasn't really spoken for as a budgetary item. So if there's money to harvest from the landfill reserve, and it is going directly back into our environment, our municipal environment, then when we have the reserve and we have a balance, what are we waiting for to use the rest on? Like, are we just going to let it, is the intent to just let it sit in a reserve forever and ever and ever? Or are we going to exercise the reserve that's there fairly and respectfully, and not go on a big spending feeding frenzy, but be responsible to it and look at what our returns are on our investment, not so much in dollars and cents, but community improvement? And does it make sense to do that? That's all. Simple question. I know if it was independently up to me, I'd say yes, let's do it right now. But it's a...
Okay, I'll make the first comment. We've heard this just about every year since I've been on council, but I'm sure if I go to Mrs. Hunter right now, she'll tell us one more time. But Mrs. Hunter, please.
Your Worship, first of all, just to go to the question of what is this money sitting there for? Right now, we receive $4 million in OMPF funding, which helps stabilize our budget, both operating and capital. And that money, at one point, was over $5 million and then took a drastic cut. At some point in our lives, that money is going to be non-existent, and we're going to have to find those funds to get our budget balanced. Part of this, the idea of having a balance in this reserve is for that day when that does happen. And also, at the end of the day, when the landfill closes, and we have to no longer have the luxury of that compensation that we receive, which has been a couple $1 million over the last 2 years. So that's what the fund was there for, and that was the intention. In terms of a CIP program, and I think the conversation was across the municipality, first of all, I think you've heard from your senior managers that is not something that is normally done. It is not typically how you use a CIP program. But over and above that, I think at this point in this council's term, you are in the nomination period. To be suddenly committing that kind of funding to a future council I think is just not acceptable.
Thank you very much. Okay, I have Councillor Bjorkman and Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think we've been looking at, we've given direction before to make sure that we carry a balance in this fund because it's a rainy day fund as well. And when you look through the numbers that we're forecasting, we actually have in 2020, we project just a balance of $435,000 left in there, not the money that's in there now. That, if you look at each year, some of these large infrastructure payments that we're going to have and projects that need to be done, that money is building in there for that particular reason. So we've given direction to administration to make sure we have the funds available in there, not just for our long term, which is the base plan for this, is to make sure that when we're not receiving landfill money, we still have money in here to pull from, but we're using it year after year for our large projects. So if anything, what we need to look at here is the lowest number in the next 3 or 4 years, and that's just $435,000, which isn't much of a buffer. So I would agree that at this time, we shouldn't be taking money out of this fund. Thank you.
Councillor Rogers, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to get some clarification on this. I see, let's look at the very, very top, the 2016 opening cash balance, $2.6 million. That's not the value of no, the value of that is like $5 million, right? Because we have loaned ourselves money from that. Is that correct? Thank you.
Through the chair, the value of that fund would be the top number there, which is the $7.9 million. So that's our reserve balance as of December 31st, 2016. Then I took out the non-cash equity in ELK, the long-term debentures, which are outstanding, and the year-end landfill compensation. So what we wanted to show here was a cash balance. That's actually the funds that are available. So we're not showing the reserve balance, we're showing the cash balance of money available.
Continue, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, yeah, our cash balance is the 2.6, and the value of the fund is $7.8 million. We have basically loaned ourselves money and are paying back with interest. Is that's correct, right? Something to that effect. Okay, so we actually have almost an $8 million reserve with some monies having been lent out.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Bundy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to echo our CAO's comments. At this late stage in the term, I am not prepared to do anything with the landfill compensation. I would like to see this, the new council can debate this, and I was actually talking to Mr. Morrison today, and I said the first thing, whether I'm here or not for the new council, I hope I am, but the first thing the new council needs to do is have an asset management training session before the strategic planning training session. Because asset management is basically the key to everything we do at Town Hall. We have to take care of the assets we have now. We have to plan for maintenance of future assets when we budget for them. And we have to take care of our existing capital assets. And then everything after that is we can say, I don't know, pet projects, right? Like, I was really fortunate to squeak in a pet project in the 2018 budget, the Harrow Streetscape Plan. But are we going to get any more of those pet projects in this term? I don't think so. So that being said, I would like to look at a grant program for the businesses in the rural area, but I don't think it's possible in this term. I think we kind of missed the boat in our 2018 budget, and our 2019 budget isn't ours to earmark. So I don't know, I won't be supporting taking this any further.
Thank you, Councillor Vokes.
So my first question is, when are we lame duck? As of right now? Are we currently lame duck?
Through you, Mr. Chair, officially under Section 275 of the Municipal Act, certain actions of council become restricted on the first day that it can be determined that three-quarters of the new council will have less than three-quarters of the outgoing council. So in effect, that really can only be determined on one of two dates. Either the close of nominations, July 22nd at 2 p.m., or after Election Day itself, October 22nd. So officially, under Municipal Act guidelines, the earliest that the council would officially become lame duck would be July 27th.
Okay, so we're not...
Depending on who files.
We're not lame duck.
No.
So I'm going to worry about council and what other councils are doing, what other people are doing. And I be quite honest, quite frank with you, I care less about councillors coming on board or councillors going. I'm worried about Randy Volk sitting here right now, so, and I'll let the electoral process wash it all out at the end, who's going to sit in this chair, whoever it may be, and they can worry about it. In terms of the $2.6 million, myself, I got some investments right now that are doing rather well, and thank you, Donald Trump, by the way. But with all that being said, if I was to open up a healthy portfolio on a 2.6, what would I be looking at in return where we invest, yeah? Over even a 6-month period.
Through the chair, you can see that the interest rate is calculated right in there. We showed it separately. So based on the $2.662 million balance for opening cash balance 2016, we're earning about $64,000 in interest per year. And then upon debenturing internally, we reviewed what we did is we matched this to the forecast period. Mm-hmm. So that way any of the projects that were identified as debenturing, we could debenture them internally. Mm-hmm. So I don't have the spreadsheet open, but the rate for a 5-year was about, I think it was approximately 2.8, and 10-year was about 3 point something, based on the last debentures that we did. So you can see that our interest rate
So in any given year, we can, assuming a relatively strong market, which it is, we can assume a $64,000 return. Approximately. So 64,000 people. So we never touched the principal, never touched the 2.6. And so what does the CIP program look like in terms of enhancing it or current applying applications? Is it 2? Is it 3? Because we do $12,000. And we just opened it up a little bit, or want to open it up for other opportunities. So if we do 3, that's 36,000. We make 64 on return. So we're still in the good, plus the 2.6. So I don't know why we're all saying no, but I don't get where we're going. It's not rocket science, people.
Mrs. Hunter, do you have comments?
I just want to say, Your Worship, what was asked for this meeting was a report on the landfill reserve,
right.
not what was the cost of CIP program.
Yes, exactly. So when everything's said and all the money's spoken for and all the columns are applied and everything is done, we end up with $2,662,352.85. And out of that $2.6 million, we generate $64,000 in interest. In order to implement a CIP program with 3 applications being successful, we need $36,000. So if we take the 36 out of the 64, we still got a balance of approximately $682,352. So I don't know why we're saying no.
Mrs. Hunter, okay.
Through Your Worship, I'm not sure, Councillor, where the 36,000 comes from. We have not done a report at this point that identifies, to my knowledge.
No, it doesn't come anywhere. I'm just using 36,000
Anyone else? We have a motion on the floor, so Deputy Mayor Malash, I got your name down here. Deputy Mayor Malash. You have, Deputy Mayor Malash, you have the floor. Deputy Mayor Malash, please.
You're going to call a recess in a second.
No, I'm not, because you're going to let Deputy Mayor.
Point of order?
Point of order. Okay. Your point of order, sir.
My point of order is, Councillor Vokes was speaking, he looked up to, as he was talking, and you were consulting at the sides, and he stopped talking until the consulting stopped. But I did not hear him have the floor released.
Councilor Vokes, you still have the floor.
Thank you. So council, again, we got 2.6 sitting there. Donna had questions about where I get the 30.
Something new, please.
Excuse me.
Just something new.
Something new would be not you interjecting. That would be really something new. So if I could, council, again, Donna wondered where the 36,000 come from. That was just a tentative number I threw out there. It doesn't mean anything. All I'm saying is if we got 2.6 million and we got 64,000 in interest, depending on the markets, and we tap into it for $25,000 or $30,000, we still got $34,000 plus the principal we never touched, but we're enhancing the CIP program. That's all I'm saying, people, and I'll leave it at that. My gosh.
So I'll know you're finished when you push the mic off. Thank you, sir. I have Deputy Mayor Malash.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. So, I'm not in favor of taking the money. I think that we should be waiting till 2019 as well, and use the CIP program that we want to expand as part of the budget process in 2019. And the reason why I say that is because we've already debated, I mean, if this $64,000 was available, we should have used the $64,000 at the time that we were negotiating and discussing other projects that we were talking about in the 2018 budget, because there were other projects that we let go of at that time that maybe I would have liked to have seen, or other councillors would have liked to have seen to happen more than this particular program. So just to allocate it to this program, I understand Councillor Vokes' desire to have this done. I am of the same opinion. I want to see the CIP program for rural businesses as well. And, you know, I've just as late as this last weekend had discussion with several businesses in rural areas in this regard, and have said that, you know, the council here, if it were the same council going into 2019, would probably be committed to expanding in the rural areas. Just we don't have the money this year, and they seem to understand that. So I too would like to see it happen this year, and I applaud Mr. Councillor Vokes for helping out in that regard. But I think, I think that we should be waiting till 2018 and discuss with all of the projects that are out there. That's my opinion anyway. Another reason why we want to keep money in this reserve is at the end of the life cycle of collecting revenues from the landfill. Right now, we're collecting about $2.4 million a year on the average. When we hit to the end of the life cycle of the landfill, thank you, we're all of a sudden going to have a dead drop that 1 year of $2.4 million of revenue that we're used to having coming in. So we want to have we may be able to absorb $500,000, which would be, you know, almost like a 4% increase in property taxes on an annual basis. But there's 2.4 would be devastating at the end. So we want to have some money left over in this account at the end to slowly wean ourselves off of that reserve fund. So the more that we can have in there, the easier transition it's going to be. And we can say that, you know, hopefully that we'll have a lot of money at the end, or we can, in the last 10 years of the life of the landfill, we can try and build it up quicker. But it's a lot safer position if you do it over earlier and not try and overspend in earlier years. Like, keep it consistent so that when we get to the end, we can easily wean ourselves off. And I don't think it's going to be an easy weaning. It's going to happen, but it's not going to be easy when it does happen. it's like, sort of like going into retirement type thing. The other thing, I had another point here. I'm going to let it go at that. Thank you.
Okay, now we have a motion on the floor, and I don't remember who started where, but I'll give you another crack. Councilor Bjorkman, you had your hand up. You're fine? Okay. Okay, I just have a comment. I sit on the landfill board. We had a meeting last week, and they gave us the budget and the amount of tonnage that's going in there, that isn't going in there versus the last couple of years. I didn't think I needed it here tonight with this being on here. I wish I'd have brought it though, to let you know that we're not getting the kind of materials we used to. Prices are going up a little bit on some of them where we're not doing that bad financially, but tonnage-wise, which benefits our municipality per ton, has been going down the last couple of years. So I will have a report on that at our next meeting, so we'll all know. Okay? Ready for the question? All in, to receive. The motion we need is to receive this, yep. Okay? So motion was made to receive. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
8.4, Infrastructure and Development, 2018-06. For receipt and that council approve the appointment of the engineering firm of Keystone Bridge Management Corporation to provide engineering services to complete the structure inspections in accordance with the completed and attached requests pursuant to Section 22.3 of the Procurement Bylaw.
Councilor Rogers, opposed, supported by Councilor Bondi. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
8.5, Planning Report 2018-21, read 214 Mainstone Avenue West rezoning, and this is together with Bylaw 1701 for 2 readings this evening. Said report for receipt, and that the bylaw received 2 readings this evening.
Moved by Councilor Rogers, supported by Councilor Bondi. Questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
8.6, Planning 2018-22, overview of changes to the Planning Act under Bill 139. That said report be received for council information purposes.
Sorry. Oh, comment, okay.
I just, if we could hear from our planner, just with regard to the Cole's notes on the changes there.
Okay, Mr. Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Bill 139 basically introduced two new acts which were approved in December of last year, and they deal with 2 things. Basically the process whereby land use decisions of council can be appealed to the province and how it is addressed, and also who's going to address it. I think the principal change that you'll note is that the Ontario Municipal Board is no longer. Has now been dismissed. It's been replaced by LPAT, the Local Planning Appeals Tribunal. Now, the only thing local about it is if you live in Toronto. It's still centered in Toronto. It's still a similar process to the Ontario Municipal Board, but there are some differences. One of them is what can be appealed. Under the old Ontario Municipal Board Act, I could appeal something. For example, I don't like the setbacks of a building that proposed in the zoning bylaw. I don't like the amount of landscaping that's being proposed, and so on. What can only be appealed now are basically where it's argued that the provincial policies are not being followed, or the town of Essex official plan is not being adhered to. All other matters are not relevant anymore. The other change has been the introduction of we don't know how to say the acronym, but the Local Planning Appeals Service Center. One of the complaints about the OMB was that it's a very complex, a very expensive, and a very long process. And so basically the province was looking for ways to make the whole process more understandable and simpler. And so in addition to LPAT, they've created the Local Planning Appeals Service Center. And that's where basically a citizen can call and get information on how the appeal system works, how it affects them, and they can get advice as to how to proceed. basically under LPAT, the pressure is, or basically the impetus is on you to call the service center first, get the basic information, get an education of how the system works, and then decide if you're going to follow through with an appeal to the province concerning a council decision. So in theory, the process is supposed to be simpler and more understandable, but it's too early at this point to say how functional, how workable, how easy the system is, because it's still being set up. So there's not much I can tell council at this point as to how simple the process really is. The other couple of things to note, though, is there's a couple of things that have to be done. One of them, if you go to the second page under protecting public interest, you'll see reference to climate change and to affordable housing. Those are two big initiatives on the province. Now, you saw my presentation on climate impacts and resource impacts. That was sort of the dystopian presentation. I will have a presentation to council concerning the actual Ontario Climate Change Action Plan and how it affects us and what we've done and could do to basically make it more effective at a local level. But it is a requirement now that all official plans contain policies not just for how to deal with, but with real objectives and real timetables as to how these objectives are going to be achieved. The other thing deals with affordable housing, and you'll see another report to council shortly on that matter. And as to whether how workable are the provincial policies for affordable housing, how can we affect affordable housing at a local level. So you'll be hearing about that possibly the next meeting. If you're talking about monies in reserve, I think those are two things that council should also be considering. Climate impact is going to be profound, and you're going to need money for emergency preparedness. You're going to need money for more infrastructure work and that sort of thing, simply because Mother Nature has its own plans. And council policies or no council policies, we have to face them. The same is the issue with affordable housing. We, as you'll see in our report, our administrative report to council, it's not an easy process. And of course, as houses become more expensive, it becomes less affordable for a greater number of people. So those are issues that council will have to face in the future. And those are both mandates the province has set, and they want to see how local councils are going to meet them. So that's subject to future reports to council.
Continue, Councillor?
Yes. Thank you, Worship. One of the things that we heard at AMO too was, as this was coming forward, they said, well, the good news is you've been trying to get rid of the OMB and you're getting rid of the OMB. The bad news is we're getting rid of the OMB. So you are the final, there's not a lot that's going to be able to be challenged, and we need to make sure that the decisions we're making really are the right decisions, and we need to stand by them, because there won't be a challenge there. So it's going to be a challenge for all of us. Thanks.
Councillor Rogers?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On this, the OMB's gone. This, what do you call it, LPAT? That's who would review it if there is an issue? And you're suggesting in the report that we've gotten very, very few issues in the past and so forth, et cetera, which is great. But what if we do have one? Do we have to form this tribunal like immediately, or do we go to Toronto and see theirs, or?
Watson?
Through Mr. Mayor, the province has, in addition to LPAT, which is, they say, dealing with policy issues primarily, they've also opened the door for local municipalities to create LAB, Local Appeals Board. And the Local Appeals Board is basically a board selected by the town to handle any appeals concerning site plan control decisions of council or committee of adjustment decisions. But in my report, basically in the last 6 years, we've had one appeal of a committee of adjustment decision. We've had no appeals of site plan control decisions. So the justification for creating a local appeals board really isn't there. So in a situation like that, all matters that are, as I say, relate to provincial policy go to LPAT, and that's the only venue that people have.
Further, yes.
So you're suggesting that we would go to LPAT if there is an issue?
essentially, there's the council, as Councillor Borkman said, the council decision is the final decision when it comes to those matters.
Okay. For the,
Yes, sir.
if we do need a lab, an LAB, is that something that we could actually establish with other communities in our area as a central lab, or would that not work, and we would need, any town would need their own if so required?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we did raise that matter with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and because we said, in a situation where you want to have the avenue to appeal, but we don't have, it's really not, we can't justify it locally, can we have a county-wide local appeal board? And the response was no, because basically the authority to have a committee of adjustment and to grant variances and to deal with site plan control is vested with the local municipalities, not with the county. So you can't have one of those. I think logically it's a good idea, but it's not sanctioned by the province.
Okay, thank you, sir. Deputy Mayor Malash.
Thank you, through your worship, to Mr. Watson. And I also think that would be a wonderful solution, to have a county-wide committee to look at these items across the county, to try and keep the politics out of it too, because a lot of times when you have those appeals, and if you have council having to make that decision, it becomes difficult and uncomfortable for council members. Because you want to please residents at the same time and try and still make the right decision. But if someone's asking a favor of council to make a change in something that seems minor, it's difficult for council to say no. So I think it might be wise, and I'm going to bring this up at county council too, that we try and go back to the province and suggest that they relook at this and give us an opportunity to do it as a county-wide panel, rather than force it to come back to council. So, thank you.
Okay. So we haven't had a motion to receive this yet. Councilor Rogers, motion to receive, supported by Deputy Mayor Malash. Questions to the motion? All in favor? Motion carries.
8.7, Infrastructure and Development, 2018-07, 2018 Federation of Canadian Municipalities Grant Application for receipt, and that council authorizes the submission of an application to receive funding for a road needs assessment.
Motion by Councilor Berkman. And authorized. Supported by Councilor Rogers. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
8.8 is a verbal report from Chief Administrative Officer providing an update on power outages in the Herald service area.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mrs. Hunter.
Through you, Your Worship. I received correspondence from Michael Audette from ELK Energy on April 26th. He was having a board meeting that night, and he was updating the board on the momentary outages in the Harrow service area. What he advised is that the Hydro 1 will be upgrading the recloser just east of Harrow from May 14th to May 18th. This was originally scheduled for September and October of 2018. So no interruptions to out customers as a result of this work are expected. However, if there is an electricity outage as a result of a storm event, or et cetera, during the upgrade, restoration times may take longer than normal. So I just wanted to provide that update to council.
Councilor Bondi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank our CAO for that update, and I want to encourage residents that after, maybe even now, but really after May 18th, if you receive power outages, even if they are momentary outages, if your service provider is ELK, call ELK, put in a complaint. If your service provider is Hydro 1, call Hydro 1 and put in a complaint. Throughout this whole process, what I'm coming to realize is that sometimes momentary outages, the ones where your power just flickers, they're not being registered on the system. So the utility service providers can go a long time without even knowing that this is happening. So we really need to have every outage reported, because then we can start to keep a record of it. And every time there's a power outage, it's all over Facebook, and I say to people, complain, they're like, well, I've complained before, but it doesn't make a difference. And I'm not begging the residents, but I'm really suggesting that we need to start to keep track of this. So please call your service provider. And also, I just want to mention that our MPP, Taras Natashek, is working on this file as well. He just had a media release go out, and he's working in the provincial legislature to see if there's any refunds on the delivery charge when people's hydro goes out more than 3 times, right? Like, let's start holding their feet to the fire. But fortunately for us, Hydro One, it did work quite well with Elk, and we will see some improvements. I'm hopeful. And I'm sure if we don't see improvements, I will hear all about it.
Okay, we need a motion to receive the CEO's verbal report. Councilor Rogers, and supported by Deputy Mayor Malash. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
8.9, Building Department Report 2018-04. April 2018 Building Report for receipt.
Received by Deputy Mayor Malash. Councilor Bjorkman with a question. Councilor Bjorkman.
Not a question, but just a comment. Just looking at the report, it's nice to go to the bottom line and have a look and see that from January to April in 2017, we had $5 million in total permits and construction value. And January to April of 2018, we're at $11.5 million. So just a very nice bump in permits and construction going on. It's great for our area and to our departments that are working on that. That's terrific. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Councilor Molly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It hasn't happened yet, but I know one of these months we're going to open one of these building reports, and we're going to see the permits taken out for Harrow, like 20. So I'm wondering if it's possible if our policy planner, Jeff Watson, can update council a little bit on the development, the Dalabona development on Queen Street, if whatever he can update. I'm sure that the public in Harrow are anxiously waiting an update, and I'd prefer it to come from him rather than me.
Mr. Nepsey.
Through your worship, the Dalabona subdivision, which is behind or north of Collier Winery, off of east of County Road 11. We are in the final stages of design review with them with respect to stormwater management. So we're into the fine details. That's been submitted for peer review. So all things moving. I think they're looking to put a shovel in the ground in November. That's what you've heard? Anyways, as long as everything's following suit that way. So good stuff on the way.
Thank you. Anything further? All in favor? Motion carries.
.10 Corporate Services 2018-06 Re-Extension Agreement Tax Sale Property, and this is together with Bylaw 1705, being a bylaw to authorize an extension agreement for 3 readings this evening. Said report for receipt and 3 readings to Bylaw 1705.
Moved by Councilor Volk, supported by Councilor Bjorkman. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
Item 9 on the agenda, any reports from our youth council members this evening?
Start with the young lady first, because I know she has one.
Yes, I have a report this evening. So, as you guys know, I'm part of the Squires of Mary and McGregor, and I have brought a letter forward tonight, so I'm just going to read it. So, the Squires of Mary is a Catholic girls' organization for ages between 11 and 17. This year, McGregor Circle 1001 is hosting a Land and Sea dinner on May 26, 2018 at the McGregor Columbian Hall. The girls participate in all aspects of putting on this event, and by doing so, the group supports our goals and mission, which includes enhancing health, education, spirituality, leadership, and community service, just to name a few. So it would be greatly appreciated if you would donate toward our fundraising event, a suitable door prize or a prize that we could raffle off, or a monetary contribution towards these items would be greatly appreciated. And I can also sell you guys tickets if anybody is interested in going. So yeah.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Motion to receive that young lady's report. Councilor Rogers and Councilor Bondi. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries. Oh, Councilor Bjergman, sorry.
Just wondering, if we have donations for a door prize or something, can we like bring them to next council meeting or I'm trying to see what the date is, May 26th. Where should we send them to or bring them?
You could send them to the hall in McGregor, or you could just drop them off here and I could come and get them.
Okay. Ethan Robinson, how are you, sir?
Good. I have nothing to report today.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Item 10, any updates from County Council this evening?
Deputy Mayor Malash.
Nothing this evening. I don't want to put you to sleep.
Okay.
11.1, that the correspondence listed in agenda item 11.1 be received and where indicated to further share with the community using suitable methods of communication.
Councilor Vokes.
Yeah, I'll support. Can we do all the correspondence all at once?
Sure can.
Through the chair, so the proposed motion is to accept them on consent, all the items in the 11.1. The second items would be for receive and support.
And supported by Councilor Bjergman. And any comments to any one of them? Councilor Bondi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On our agenda was the Essex Windsor Solid Waste Authority's diversion report, which, if you want to go to sleep, you can read that. But actually, I found it really interesting. And our diversion rate in the county is gone from 35% to 34%, but our recycling rate seemed to go up. So how I'm interpreting that is that there's a flood. So we have a lot of materials going into the landfill that cannot be recycled. So some things to keep in mind is if you're on Facebook, like the Essex Windsor Solid Waste Authority, they put recycle tips on there that are just brilliant. I love them and I share them all the time. So just to show that recycling is so important, in a lot of it, our revenues went up. If you look at newspaper, and I think it's ton, T-O-N-N-E, is a ton? Okay. Yeah. I know there's tone and ton, and so newspaper has gone up this year, cardboard, fine paper, steel cans, water bottles have gone up from $277 to $397 from 2016 to 2017. So they're pretty lucrative for the Waste Authority. So get all those water bottles in the recycling. And it's interesting to read. You know, I find it fascinating, and I'm excited to talk about more methods of waste diversion and to see if we can. I think 34% is pretty low. Like, I'd like to, to do better, right? We should aim for at least 50% and see if we can get there anyways. So it's a good report. I just wanted to make some notes to the members of the public that it's on our agenda, and you can see some information about how we're recycling in the county, and also like the Essex Windsor Solid Waste Authority on Facebook, because they have lots of helpful tips.
And with regards to your water bottles, they prefer to have the lids off. I always used to squeeze them real tight, take the air out, put the top on, because it takes up a lot less room in my bin. But they want the tops off. Yeah, they're not recyclable, so throw them away and just use the plastic bottle. Thanks, Sherry. Oh. Any further? All in favor? Motion carries.
One second. .2.1 is correspondence concerning EOK Solutions, Inc. and EOK Energy, Inc. that Council acknowledges receipt of the financial statements of EOK Solutions and EOK Energy, Inc. for the year ending December 31st, and that should read December 31st, 2017. Also, Council acknowledges receipt of the resolutions appointing KPMG LLP as auditor and the appointment of the directors, and that the mayor be further authorized to sign said documents on behalf of the corporation of the town of Essex.
Okay, Councillor Oaks?
If I could, I'll support it. Can we move all correspondence too with questions instead of going through everyone?
Well, I know first one is just to receive, and you want to also support where the ones that need support to be supported? Okay. Moved by Councillor Oaks.
Sorry.
Excuse me.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, can I just have some clarification on that? What's the proposed motion?
I'm just asking that we move all correspondence at once with support on all.
11.1, 2,
Right through 11.
So, right, so through you, Mr. Chair, 11.2.2, 11.2.3, and then point 4 is with regret.
There's ones with regret, one with supported, and one with receipt, and he's moving all those.
Yes.
Yep, supported by Councillor Bondi. Any questions? Councillor Bjorkman and Councillor Bondi. Sorry.
Regarding 11.2.2, I would prefer to just receive. Personally, if anybody wants to talk about that, I don't have the knowledge with regard to what the fire or the Amherstburg Chief of Police is asking for there, and they're looking for our support, our information, what we think about this issue, and I don't think we have enough information to do that. So I would just receive .2.2.
Support. I'll support.
Okay, so Councillor Vokes, you support that, and Councillor Rogers?
So through you, Mr. Chair, we have a motion right now to receive and support all of them as one block, but with the exception of 11.2.2, just to receive.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And I had Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sometimes when they need receiving and supporting, I find it easier and more cleaner to do them one at a time, because sometimes they get a little complicated. So in terms of the one from the town of Amherstburg, I will be honest, I don't understand a lot about it either, but what I think is that we should almost table it until we have some feedback from staff, because I really don't want to dismiss something coming from a neighboring community, because if we send out something, I really don't, when neighboring communities dismiss our things, it kind of doesn't feel nice, and I'll tell you that from experience. So I don't know. I would like to have some comments from our staff on that, perhaps maybe our fire chief or our staff sergeant with the OPP. And I have a comment for 11.2.1 in terms of elk. At the last elk board meeting, I was given that the elk board members are given a public document. Elk has an asset management plan now. And I just wanted to let people know that it's on there. It's on the Ontario Energy Board's website too, but it's really hard to find. But I do have a hard copy. I have not read it myself yet, and it sounds kind of technical, but it's just something it's something that we should review as a council, their asset management, and I'm excited about that. So that's all my comments. Thank you.
Now, a question to the clerk. Councillor Bondi is possibly thinking of tabling that. Is that possible at this time, to table that 2.2, 11.2.2?
So the mover on that motion and seconder was Councillors Vokes and Bondi. I don't know if that's the direction, or we could do a friendly amendment to that. Right now,
Anything's okay at this point, yeah, that's okay.
Okay, so we would vote to table first.
Yeah. Yep.
Table that first before we receive and support all the rest.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I would suggest that with the original motion that we have with Councillor Vokes and Bondi, be that the items be received and supported. Items 11.2.1, 11.2.3, 11.2.4, then council can pass a motion to table that one specific piece of correspondence from the Township of Baldwin.
So the tabling would be later. Okay, that's all I needed to know. So on the motion to receive 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, all in favor? Motion carried. Now for the motion to table.
That's Bondi.
15.2.
Yes.
Okay. Moved by Counselor Bondi, supported by?
Until we have staff comments for the next council meeting.
And Counselor Rogers, support. Questions? All in favor? Motion carries. Thanks.
Okay. Item 12, committee meeting minutes, that the minutes listed in item 12, together with any recommendations noted therein, be received and adopted as circulated.
Moved by Counselor Vokes? Counselor Bjorkman and Deputy Mayor Malash. Any questions? Counselor Rogers.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Personnel Committee, I'd just like to have my name spelt properly in the body of the minutes. And with that change, I support this too.
Will be done, sir. Anything else? All in favor? Motion carries.
Item 15 on the agenda are notices of motion. These notices of motion are merely for presentment this evening, no discussion, and these motions, once presented, will be brought back for consideration and discussion at the next council meeting on May 22nd. 15.1, Councilor Bondi, that administration ask administration to review and bring back a draft bylaw which limits the idling of vehicles in the town of Essex. 15.2, Councilor Bondi, that administration be requested to bring back a report on the possibility of a traffic signal at the corner intersection of Erie and King Streets in Ward 4. 15.3, as added to the adopted agenda this evening, is a notice of motion from Councillor Vokes concerning cafe operations. Through you, Mr. Chair, if Councillor Vokes can provide his notice in the form of a motion.
Councillor Vokes.
Yes, I'd like to put a motion forward that the next council meeting, I'm asking council and I'm looking for a seconder to support an opportunity to put outside cafes in our downtown corridor with existing restaurants.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so what would be the action item coming out of that notice of motion? Sorry, if you could just restate that.
I'm looking for support of council to move forward with outside cafe opportunities.
Okay. 15.4, also added to the adopted agenda this evening, is a notice from Councillor Vokes concerning street sweepers. Once again, through the chair, if Councillor Vokes can state his notice in the form of a motion.
I want to put a motion forward and looking for a seconder and support that we draft a bylaw that stops residents from putting grass clippings onto the road after we just got done sweeping the streets.
And 15.5, once again, also added to the adoption agenda, is a notice of motion from Councillor Vokes concerning the fire report. And once again, through you, Mr. Chair, if Councillor Vokes can state his notice in the form of a motion.
I'm putting a motion forward and I'm looking for a seconder to receive the cost that collectively as a council for the full report of the fire department. Fire department review.
Item 16 on the agenda, reports and announcements from council members.
You ready, Deputy Mayor Malash? First.
I have nothing this evening, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Vokes.
Yes, just briefly, I want to talk to council real quickly on July 28th in downtown Essex at Heritage Park. we're going to be, and I met with the business people of Essex. They had some concerns about something to stimulate some sales and recognition of their growth and opportunities. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be holding a business expo from 9 to 3 on July 28th, and we're going to also be having a cruise-in for old cars. We're going to be having live music, face painting, Disney characters, but the main intent of it is to have the businesses of Essex and surrounding areas come in and celebrate their businesses. So they'll be setting booths up, they'll be selling their wares, there'll be food trucks, there's going to be ice slush trucks, there's going to be, everything will be there. So again, for the residents of Harrow, for the business owners in Harrow, the business owners in Essex, and the business owners of the surrounding area, we encourage you to come to the Business Expo again on July 28th, starting at 9 o'clock, ending at 3, and there's absolutely no cost to it. It's completely free, everything. And again, it's to promote and help businesses get acknowledgement of their businesses being there. So we're going to work with Stephanie Winger, who chairs the business breakfast club, and we're going to have a little party downtown in recognition of the businesses, if you will. That's it.
Thank you.
As it relates to that, and in terms of council activities or updates, where are we with the letter that was sent to the new health minister in terms of the emergency health care and what it means to our residents, and have they responded yet?
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So that letter was resent. We have not received a response to date.
So I'm asking council, I believe...
This is reports through.
Okay.
Through you, Your Worship. This is reports from council members. There's no direction. It's just simply a report, and there's no discussion. So that kind of thing will have to come back at a later time, in some form or fashion.
Well, I want it to come back as soon as we can get it back. Like here we are again, if we will, and I don't say it objectively in a challenge fashion, but as councillors, we're trying to get things done, and it's something very simple. It's just a simple question. We sent a letter to the health minister, not once but twice. We were ignored not once but twice, and now I'm just asking, have we received a response? And if no, can we resend it? But if the protocol and the policy says I got to bring it back to the next meeting to ask to resend it, I guess I'll do that.
And that's, if I may, that's what the clerk just said.
Okay,
so.
fine. I'm not going to argue. No.
Okay.
Next meeting, well, I'll ask for it. Good. Done.
Not the clerk, the CEO. So.
Okay, done. I'll ask next
Okay,
meeting.
that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Councilor Bjorkman? I guess.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've got just a quick report. On April 17th and 18th, I attended the 2018 Ontario Bike Summit in Toronto, along with Chris Nepsey, our Director of Infrastructure. We immersed ourselves for 2 days in the past, present, and future of recreational cycling in Ontario. It was a big deal as it was the 10th anniversary of Share the Road in Ontario, and the changes in that span of time have been dramatic. Essex County's CWATS program, the Town of Essex investment in active transportation are keeping us on the leading edge of bike-friendly roadways and trails. In order to keep the momentum going in this area, we need to be aware of the funding the province is making available, and speaking directly with political leaders as well as best practices from other delegates who have applied for and been successful winning these funding programs will help us advance in this agenda. The Bike Friendly Communities Program is one of the flagship programs of Share the Road. A central theme of the BFC is the sharing of best practices amongst communities to help reduce the duplication of efforts and improve the overall quality of cycling. We have applied for accreditation through this program in the past and came up just short of a bronze designation. With the improvements and programs implemented in the last few years, I believe we would be successful in our next application. Wayfinding is something we as a town have identified as being a priority and will be an issue we are tackling this year. We think of wayfinding for cars, but we also need to see what wayfinding for cyclists and runners on trails and in bike lanes needs. Their needs need to be identified separately. There were lots of best practices that were shared with us in the seminar. And Chris and I were able to have a very good conversation with Minister McGarry from the MTO while we were at the summit. We spoke at length with her again about County Road 3 and our continued efforts to have it completed. We were also able to present to her our issue with getting cyclists and pedestrians across the highway to enjoy the Cypher Systems Greenway, as well as our future sports fields. Ottawa has a number of pedestrian bridges, and we have them in Windsor as well over the Herb Gray Parkway. So they do build them, and they are in existence here in Ontario. We were able at least to make the case that if the highway was not going to be widened in the foreseeable future and give us our underpass at Victoria, then perhaps they would consider a pedestrian overpass. We'll be following up on these issues and look to integrate these and many more that we learned about at this summit. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Bjorkman and Mr. Nepsey. Councillor Rogers? Councillor Bondi?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank the volunteers that came out to Harrow the other day and all of the other communities to participate in the garbage cleanup. And if you didn't make it out, there's bags, at the arenas, and you could pick up garbage any day. You don't have to wait for an organized event to pick up garbage. And if you need help, I'd be willing to help you. Also, I want to let everybody know that the first Harrow Market is starting up again this Sunday, 10 to 2. They've changed their hours a bit at the Country Depot. So come on out and see what the local businesses have there. And I also want to thank staff for working on the social media posts on the poop and scoop bylaw. I've recently received a lot of complaints that dog owners in the municipality are not picking up their dog poop, so administration did a little blitz on Facebook. So if everybody could share that too and just remind people, whether you have a dog or whether you had a horse. I just received a complaint the other day that a horse was walking along the trail on County Road 50 and there was horse poop everywhere. So please pick up after your animals, and thanks for cleaning up the garbage with all of us. I heard that McGregor had like 40 people there, so that was awesome. How many? 50. Wow, awesome. So it's good to see the residents engaged.
Thank you for that. Now we go to bylaws. Sir?
17.1.1, bylaw 1700.
Excuse me, Councillor Rogers.
Yes, thank you. Before we go into the bylaws, could I ask that, and I don't know if this is the right time or whatever, but a couple of meetings ago, Councillor Bondi tabled a motion about the Essex Fire Services survey, and it was to be tabled until after we heard the in-camera report. We have heard the in-camera report, and the motion is not back on in this agenda. So could I ask that it be brought back to the next agenda?
For sure, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. That was it.
It'll come to the next meeting, for sure.
17.1.1, bylaw 1700, to confirm the proceedings from the April 16th meeting for third reading this evening.
By Councillor Bondi, supported by Deputy Mayor Meloche. Any questions? All in favor? That carries.
17.2.1, bylaw 1686, being a bylaw to amend 1344, being the bylaw for the imposition of development charges. Three readings.
Moved by Councillor Bondi, supported by Deputy Mayor Meloche. I already had it written down. All in favor? Motion carries.
Bylaw 1698, to establish tax rates and additional charges for the year 2018, and that's for three readings this evening.
Moved by Councillor Bjorkman, supported by Deputy Mayor Meloche. Questions? All in favor? That carries.
Bylaw 1702, to authorize an agreement between the Association of Municipalities of Ontario and the town in regards to Ontario's Main Street Revitalization Initiative for three readings.
Moved by Councillor Bondi, supported by Councillor Bjorkman. Questions? All in favor? That carries.
Bylaw 1703 to authorize the borrowing of money for 3 readings also this evening.
Moved by Counselor Rogers, supported by Counselor Bjorkman. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
And for 2 readings this evening, bylaw 1704 to confirm the proceedings of this May 7th regular council meeting.
Moved by Counselor Bundy, supported by Counselor Bjorkman. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries. Deputy Mayor Malas, Counselor Bjorkman, all in favor, that carries. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.